Hello, everybody, and welcome to our third installment on the PPP program Black Box as we try to dig in and open up all the little secrets that are inside this program. Today, we're going to focus on forgiveness, and that's forgiveness of existing first draw loans, new first draw loans that get taken out in 21, or new second draw loans also taken out in 2021. My name is John Sweisberger. I'm partner in charge of our business outsourcing services practice, joined again by Jen McCabe, my partner in the practice. So Jen, let's dive in on forgiveness. Tell us about what's new.
All right. They have made this program even friendlier. You can now use your PPP money for new expense categories, specifically those things that you can't live without. That would be key supplier costs, key operation costs, with the caveat being they can't be new things. They need to be things that you can show evidence that they were always critical to your operation. You can also submit for PPE, basically. They want to help you cover masks or shields that you may have had to put up in your business. And if your property was damaged because of rioting or looting or anything linked to civil unrest last year, you can now include those. You can also, when you look at payroll costs, they are including disability and group life, not just health insurance costs. And then the other thing they did, which is really helpful, is they defined a seasonal employer more clearly. We were all pretty much cowboys out there interpreting what this meant, but it is really that you operate in a time of year really a lot more heavily than you do in another part of the year. They define that as 7 months. And John, the other one that you just really made clear for me is that you have to get 25% of your revenue in one half of the year and more than 75% in the other half to show this really big imbalance in the way that you make your money. That's how you qualify as a seasoned employer. That helps you later when you're counting employees and full-time equivalents when you're calculating forgiveness.
Exactly. And let's be clear that those two criteria there are or, not and. So if you're in operation less than 7 months of the year, or if you're very imbalanced in your revenue ratio. So, but you're right. Thankfully, they have defined that, because originally it seemed like last year it was all about, I've got a big uptick in the summer. But what about a ski lift operator? They probably don't. So
we were picking 12 weeks here and there and doing our very best.
Yeah,
but
very, very complicated. So thankfully, they've defined that. They've also changed a few things, not the least of which is loans that were under $150,000 in value. And this goes for loans issued in 2020 as well as anyone that is issued in 2021. They are greatly simplifying the application for forgiveness on that. You may recall that in the fall of 2020, they issued a Form 3508S, which was for loans under $50,000, which was essentially a simple one-page certification that said, this was the amount that I took out. I used it all. I used it for the appropriate purposes. Please give me forgiveness. Now they're essentially doing that for loans up to $150,000. At the time that we are recording this, they have not yet issued that form, but we expect it any day now. But that should be much simpler for what's about 85% of the loans that were originally issued under the PPP program. Second significant thing that changed was the EIDL grants, economic injury disaster loan advances that were offered up to $10,000 were described in the EIDL application as a grant, but the way it was being treated in the PPP forgiveness was any outstanding grant was being deducted from the forgiveness amount by the SBA. That's been changed, so it's no longer a grant in name only. It's actually considered a grant, and so they will no longer be deducting those grant amounts from the forgiveness amount. And if you've already applied for forgiveness and they deducted that amount of your grant, you're going to see a separate check from the SBA. So they're going to go back and do a make good on that for you, which is great news. And Jen referenced the seasonal employers a minute ago. The look back period was somewhat narrowly defined to the spring and summer months originally. Now it's any 12-week period during the year between mid-February of 2019 and mid-February of 2020. So that gives you a much broader range to do your comparison against for purposes of FTE calculations and things like that and forgiveness. And then the last thing, and this was the source of so much confusion for so many people all summer and fall last year, was the definition around covered period. Recall that on the original first draw loans, those issued in 2020, it was either 8 weeks or 24 weeks. It was one or the other, A or B, and there was no in-between choice. Now then they confused it in the fall when they said, well, you can apply for forgiveness anytime during the covered period. So at 12 weeks or 16 weeks or whenever, but it doesn't change the 24-week definition of covered period for people as it relates to the salary reduction factor. So people just got really, really confused. And now they've said, all right, enough of that. You can pick whatever covered period you want between 8 and 24 weeks. And that's really, really important for an awful lot of people who late in the time period in the 24 weeks had to do some things with their business, cut some heads or do some distributions or put out some capital expenditures, whatever it may have been, that might be looked at a little sketchily by the SBA. Now you can kind of pick the time frame that says, yeah, let's not bring those into play at all. So that's a very significant change when you get into the nuances of forgiveness. But yet there's still an awful lot of things that are the same, right, Jen?
Yep, lots. I was going to say about that borrower defined period, it also allows you access to other credits, other tax credits, because you can't take a credit.
Great point.
For R&D or for the employee retention credit, which we're going to cover next week. You can't take those credits if you used PPP wages for something that's a credit in that period. So this opens up other opportunities for taxpayers too.
Absolutely.
They are still requiring that we use at least 60% of the money for payroll costs. That's important. This, in its heart of hearts, this program is to maintain jobs and to help workers keep their jobs. The compensation per employee is still capped at $100,000 because this program is not targeting the bigwigs. It's targeting average people on Main Street. This is where I'm going to wait and watch for some more guidance. The salary and FTE reduction factor formulas appear to be untouched so far. I'm wondering if this is going to change a little bit. I'm particularly thinking that maybe people who still haven't spent all of their money will be given until March 31st, maybe, to spend their money. Right now it's December 31st still. There are people out there who are hanging on to their first PPP money and hoping to spend it and bring people back to work. So watch for that one. And then the last one that's still the same is you have 10 months from the end of your covered period to apply for forgiveness. So if you use 24 weeks, your loan period, if you got the first draw loan, ended sometime in October most of the time, and you had another 10 months after October, so all the way to next August to apply for forgiveness. And while I wouldn't recommend it, for some people it's helpful if they need the time or they can't get it together, or if they just want to think about it a little bit longer. But in the meantime, interest is not accruing. That's what's important here. They're giving people a lot of time, and they aren't going to get punished if they take a lot of time.
Exactly. That's a really important point there, that last bit, that you have it available to you. Feel free to take it if you feel that you need it. If you're going to get full forgiveness, there's kind of no reason to wait necessarily, but some people are still kind of putting it off, and you do have plenty of time on that. When it does come time for you to apply for forgiveness, we can absolutely help you, take you through every step of the process. Basically, we'll do the work for you so you can stay focused on running your business and not trying to learn all the rules around a program that you're not likely to ever be able to do again. So we can help you with all that. If you're interested in learning about the details, visit our webpage at learn.armaninolllp.com/SBA. and you'll get everything you need to know about the program right there. And as always, you can visit our searchable FAQ library with literally hundreds and hundreds of questions at the web address that you see in the lower right-hand corner. That's it for this installment. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Jen. Take care, everybody.